My Team Unity administration is very pleased with our record of consistently delivering on our promises made to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, who on February 16, 2015, entrusted us with the business of managing and directing the affairs of our beloved Federation. We take this responsibility rather seriously. We see it as a sacred trust, and we will do all in our power to continue to build on our accomplishments for and on behalf of our people who are our greatest assets. My administration considers it a privilege to be able to account to you once more on our record of performance for the people. Forums such as this press conference give us yet another opportunity to sustain critical communication links with the public whom we serve. I want at this juncture to record that as we move forward with our manifesto commitments, my Team Unity administration has now set our sights on the pursuit of justice for our non-establishment workers in the civil service. The betrayal in their denial of their holiday pay way back since around 2012, and more importantly, the failure to regularize their standing as pensionable employees of the government has been a vexing issue for the over 1,200 plus general auxiliary employees. My government promised that we will correct this injustice, and we are on the verge of so doing. In this regard, I can report that we have now formalized a committee to advise the government on all aspects of this implementation: legislative, financial, and human resource. The committee will be chaired by the Chief Personnel Officer of the government, Mrs. Starfreda Rochester, and it will include the Acting Labour Commissioner, Ms. Shernell James, our Budget Director, who is Mr. Calvin Edwards, a representative from the Legal Department, and Mr. Glenroy Woodley, a non-establishment worker, and a representative from the Accountant General's Department. The committee should complete its work by summer, allowing for determination by the government and the way forward before year-end. I want to encourage all the employees in both public and private sectors to give their best performance in their attendance, their punctuality, their work quality, the ingenuity, the honesty, and loyalty they bring to their work establishments. By far, our single greatest challenge at this time as a nation is the issue of crime. And my government continues to tackle this scourge head-on and will not cede this fight to those criminal elements who are bent on destroying our families and communities, our social institutions, our economy, the investment climate, and our country's good name in the regional and international environments. The criminals in St. Kitts and Nevis have been put on notice from the very inception of our administration just 2 years ago. We have far too much at stake in this nation, individually and collectively, to allow their antisocial behaviors, their selfish, heartless, callous, and destructive attitudes and action to run roughshod over the length and breadth of this federation. Over the past 2 days, I would have reminded the public that St. Kitts and Nevis is by and large a nation of laws. We are governed by laws so that we remain a respectful and disciplined people, wherein the gains of development and prosperity are shared by all. Each and every person in this country deserves his or her fair share. Such is our right, and such is our reasonable expectation. However, the path to prosperity and a fair share is not characterized by lawlessness. It is not characterized by criminality, by homicides, by robbery, fraud, and the destructively selfish mindset of coveting what others have without working for it. Such behavior has to stop and will be stopped by whatever legal and other means are available to our national security agencies and our people who have the right to protect what is theirs. Our people have suffered enough at the hands of the criminals, and the families of victims have had to rebuild the pieces of their lives in the face of grief and fractured relationships. On this score, I wish to extend sincere condolences to the families who have lost loved ones to crime, especially to gun violence. And in this regard, I want to extend even more personally to the family of yesterday's incident. That was an individual whom I know very well and whose father had been someone who had worked with me in the Ministry of Agriculture for many years. It was someone who I thought had a very bright and promising future. No young person, indeed, no person ought to be shut down in our communities. There's always recourse to the rule of law, to our courts, etc. Over the past 2 years, the federal government would have injected unprecedented sums budgetary support into the Ministry of National Security so that they can take the lead in delivering and public order, public safety, and public security. Our 2016 budget makes provision for $72 million to be spent on this ministry, a figure previously unheard of in the history of our country. This fight against crime is everybody's business. It is not just a government responsibility. Our people, our business community, civil society, and social institutions, such as our schools and churches, all have a role to play in achieving this common objective. Our investments in national security run the gamut of training, technical assistance, procurement of crime-fighting equipment, including forensic equipment, strategic partnerships with overseas law enforcement agencies and other entities, and the restructuring of our police force. Coupled with this significant investment in national security is the attention now being placed on our legal infrastructure. However, the Attorney General will address this matter during the course of this press conference. Our investments in technology, including the build-out of our CCTV program and our security apps program, is also an imperative. And this, by extension, I'm sure we will have an update from the Commissioner of Police or some other official of the High Command, because we have now started to build out that program starting in Shadwells. All of what I have just said should be indicative of the fact that this government takes the matter of citizen security most seriously. The society has to rise to a higher level of engagement and support in order to rid this country of the scourge of violent crime, gun violence in particular, and criminality in general. We need a clear and consistent message to be sent to the criminals that there will be no protection by their families, their neighbors, the churches, the media, by businesses and political entities. Indeed, there's no hiding place. None of us can afford to sit on our laurels while our people suffer from violent onslaughts. Those who see the crime must report it. And yes, they must be assured that their confidentiality will be protected. In this regard, we will strengthen our witness protection program, both on island and overseas. Meantime, we will engage in a comprehensive effort to address the challenge to public safety and security. Our response to date and for the future will be to increase the penalties for crime, and we hope that will have the deterrent effect, to make it more difficult for repeat offenders to secure bail. Some of the homicides that have been committed have been done by persons who were released on bail, and therefore our system has to respond to that reality. We will continue to strengthen the judiciary to allow more timely dispensation of justice, and in that regard, we shall recruit at the soonest possible time 2 additional experienced criminal lawyers to work in the office of the DPP. Members are well aware that we have now had a second High Court judge in our jurisdiction, and therefore the part-time response to criminal matter through the criminal assizes, that is now finished, and the courts then are available full-time every month, every week, to serve in this regard. There are other resources which, as a consequence of that particular direction, that the government will have to bring on board to support the effective discharge of justice in our now 2 high courts and St. Kitts. We have engaged in special operations at our harbors and ports in order to clamp down on the entry of drugs, ammunition, and contraband. And recent successes reported are indicative that those special operations can and will bear fruit. We are strengthening the rehabilitation program of prison residents, and as such are in the process of recruiting someone with interest and knowledge in forensic psychology to work with the residents of Her Majesty's Prison. We shall provide greater support through the Fresh Start program and STEP for marginalized and vulnerable groups, cognizance that education and training reforms lead to greater empowerment of our young people. Much of this will be established with the support of the Ministry of Social Services and Gender Affairs, the Department of Education, and the Department of People's Empowerment. And in this regard, I suspect later we will call on Senator Phipps to outline some of the initiatives that are now being implemented under the Gender and Social Affairs Department. My cabinet calls on all, particularly the business community, to do more to minimize vulnerability in their systems of control, including greater use of technology. The Commissioner of Police should have issued some advice to business places on how they can better protect themselves, their employees, their investments, and their premises. And we are expecting that very shortly he will follow that up with a more direct face-to-face meeting with the Chamber and relevant stakeholder groups to ensure that they understand and are committed to deal with the vulnerabilities which the police has observed over time. I want to indicate that on the 23rd of May 2017, we will have the next session of the Parliament, and a number of the pieces of legislation that will come, indeed there are about 13 bills that will be tabled at that sitting. A significant number of them will address issues of law and order, public safety and security. And I would want at this point then to turn to the Attorney General, the Honorable Vincent Byron, to address some of our legislative responses as they relate to the matter of public safety and security.